Hi, I'm Mac McCarthy, and I help people with their breakups. And today we're going to get into the blindsided breakup, the breakup you didn't see coming. Okay. I've actually, honestly, never been through one of these before directly. I've definitely been through ones where I've been the coach, where I've been listening to the story. And really, what I do in my coaching practice, I listen actively, ask good questions, and let's get to the bottom of what happened in your particular breakup. And if you want to book a live coaching session, go to writemac.com. So you didn't see it coming. Okay. What to do if this is the case? And a lot of times the people that you're getting information from or you're getting opinions from, they've been in a breakup before, but some of them haven't been on one of these ones where you're just completely blindsided. And one of the reasons I'm talking about that today specifically is because I had a story sent in that I'm going to unpack in a little bit. That's basically one of these blindsided breakups. And I often say these are some of the toughest because when you break up, you've already got questions about, is this right? Is this wrong? Did I do something wrong here? But when you got something where you didn't see it coming, because a lot of times, let's be honest, when the breakup happens, you're like, yeah, the writing was on the wall. I kind of knew this was a possibility. This has been a problem a long time. But when you have something where they're gone and you're like, wait a minute, because there's a lot of situations that I help people unpack where they're lying to themselves. Like when we unpack it, it reveals very clearly, and that's why I tell people to write out their story of the breakup. It gets real clear on what went wrong or what you're just not going to agree on ever. You're never going to get to that point where you both are like, oh yeah, let's get married, let's be together long term, and let's put some of these problems to the side. So let's get into what to do if you didn't see it coming. Number one, book a live coaching session and let's go through this. So I don't always say that, but for these particular breakups, because they cut so deep and you are in a tailspin of what went wrong. You can't figure it out. You're looking for answers and you just really don't know. So going to someone who's a specialist in breakups, someone that's what I do, I can help you through this and get you out of the place where you're going to your friends, family, and colleagues and wondering and wishing, because there's probably some breadcrumbs that were left. There's probably some hints that were laid out. And really, before you can accept something, which is your first step in any breakup, disagreement, problem, losing a job, you got to accept reality, right? Before you can accept reality, you got to know what reality is. You got to know that there's some things you didn't see here that now when we go through it, it's like, okay, doesn't mean you won't be hurt. Doesn't mean you won't be upset. It just means that in order for you to accept what happened, you have to understand it better, right? You have to understand what happened and why. If you go to all your friends, family, and colleagues, you're going to get, and YouTube, you're going to get 15 different answers and go into, all these different directions. It's going to make it worse. All right. If you book a session with me, it's a money back guarantee that you'll get some sort of clarity moving forward. If you don't, I'll give your money back. Number two, is this a pattern they are running? This is a really good question. Do they run away or go away fast when they have a problem? So if they have an issue with a family member, a work colleague, do they quit jobs in a day rather than give their 2 weeks? Did they quit college in year 2 because they hated a professor? These are things that you can look at and you can go, oh, they have a pattern of when things go wrong, they'll bail, and they'll bail quickly. So that's something that when you get a hold of that, you're like, all right, it wasn't so much that it was personal that I did something wrong. It's just that this individual, when things go wrong, they're out the back door and they don't leave a note. Okay. So is this a pattern they are running? Number 3, life's not fair. Now, someone's like, oh, I've heard that before. Because what will happen in a blindsided breakup, a breakup that you didn't see coming, you kind of are like, this isn't fair. Okay. And if you get that in your mind that you didn't get enough explanation, that they owe you more, that's a moment where you have to look at everything else that's not fair in life, or things that you've done to other people that's not fair. Because if you cling to that, that's going to be one of those things that it's not going to serve you. So if you see yourself in that theme, like, this isn't fair, right? We got to flip that. You got to get away from that. Number 4, there's a lesson here. So every time you break up, every time you have a problem in your life, there's a lesson to be learned underlying there. You might not get the lesson until years later, but the bottom line, there's just something to be revealed there. And a lot of times when you get blindsided in a breakup, it's not really about you. It's about the way the other person handles problems and issues. Okay. Number 5, stay off social media. I'm going to say this one more time. Stay off social media. You should do this for all breakups, but when you get blindsided and you didn't see it coming and you're really spun, if you got kibbles and bits of what they're up to, it's not going to help you. Okay? It's going to make things worse. And like this story I'm going to go through in a little bit, if they're the type of people, they're done, there's no looking back, you don't want to know what they're up to. Number 6, allow yourself time to process things. This isn't a time to just go out and hook up or go out and get drunk. If you've been blindsided, just like in an accident, there's going to be some trauma to that. Because anytime you're super extremely surprised, whether you're surprised as a birthday party or you're surprised by getting mugged on a street corner, surprise elevates the memory. It's like a charge. So if you get in a breakup where you didn't see it coming and it was just a total shock, it's post-traumatic stress on your mind, because the shock, the idea that you didn't have any idea or any preparation of this coming, elevates the pain of it and the extreme feeling from it. Okay. And so that means that you just need some time to process this a little bit, what went down, some quiet time in a lot of cases. So that leads me to number 7, don't hang out with people that will pour gas on the fire. Even if it's your best friend. Sometimes your best friends aren't good people when things are down, right? So if you sense like, this isn't the person, even though this has been my best friend since I was 10 and been there through thick and thin, but they've had nothing but shitty relationships, or I'd add this one. There's some people out there, they haven't had a relationship in 5 years and they're bitter. 3 years. I know women like this that, for whatever reason, and I would say from my professional opinion, a lot of times it's a limited belief. They have something wrong that happened in the past and they're blaming dating apps right now, or the town they live in, or the city they live in. All the guys suck. They never think it's something about them, but they're not even actively dating. When you get in a breakup, they love to pour a little gas on the fire and sit with you with a cup of hot cocoa and just go through your shit and make it worse, because they look at it like, oh, great, I got a single friend now. Maybe they can come on my side of the fence and we can complain about dating all the time. So really, this is where you really got to take some inventory, because if you get blindsided, you're going to be extra sensitive and you're going to be looking for answers. And if you go to the wrong person, it will make it worse. Number 8, if they moved far, which is common in these blindsided type breakups where you didn't see it coming, they moved to another country, like this story I'm going to break down in a minute. Don't reach out or beg them back. If they're a country away, if they're in another time zone, it's not a time to do a Hail Mary and declare your love for them and say you want them back, because for them to undo moving to another country, I've had a few clients have this happen. It's very difficult. It's a big barrier beyond you just getting back together. There's visas involved. There's time travel. There's the cost of a ticket. And people overlook this like, oh, it's like if the person's that far away, you're really going to have to get in touch with reality and the idea that this isn't one of those things you can change very quickly. The other person premeditated their move probably, and you know, writing them some long letter, sending them heart sobby letters, it's probably going to get rejected. I'd like to talk to you first before you do this, because, like I said, there's one extra barrier. If they moved far away and it was a blindsided breakup where you were like, I didn't know they were going to take this job and they just moved in a day. These kinds of things, very sensitive. And the chances that you can turn them around, it's not going to happen in a day. Now, is there a possibility in 2 months, 6 months, a year, 2 years, they might come back? Absolutely. Absolutely. But even though that situation where they made a quick decision in your eyes, in your heart, they probably knew what they were doing a little while into it. All right, so I'm going to get into, I got 2 stories to break down. If you have a story you want me to break down in a future live stream or a YouTube video, go to rightmac.com. If you got any questions about your relationship, situationships, limited beliefs, go ahead and put it in the comments on the side on the live stream. We got 6 on deck. Welcome if you haven't been here before. Like I said, I'll get to your comments or your questions in a moment. I do have the energy and the time today to probably take a call or two. So if some of you are on right now and you're like, hey, could I call in? I do that sometimes on these live streams, and we can unpack some of the things you're going through. And you don't have to show your video. You don't have to show your face if you don't want to, because it's a sensitive thing, right? Okay. Let's get into it, folks. Let me pull up this. All right. So here we go. Hey, coach, I just broke up with my boyfriend 2 days ago. He's blocked me on everything. I actually have his wallet with his ID and his passport. I've been trying to get a hold of him to give it back. His mom just contacted me today and told me she would pick it up. His mom loves me, so I asked if we could talk. She said no, not at this point, as she didn't want to get in the middle of our relationship. The mom is actually a therapist herself. I'm lost at why he's just decided he'll never talk to me again. The fact that you have his wallet and his ID and passport, I mean, it seems like that would be a decision that he made quickly, or he's just a forgetful person, possibly. Those are things you don't usually leave with someone for 2 days. I find it interesting that he's just blocking you on everything. I lost at why he's just decided he'll never talk to me again. About 3 weeks ago, he broke down before we went to bed that he's been thinking that he wants to be single and that he feels his life has become boring. All right, so this is what's really interesting when you write out your story, okay? And this is what I preach to a lot of people, and I'm not telling you to write a story that's perfect grammar, that you're going to publish. Just whatever comes out. That's what happened. So some people will fight this, right? Oh, I don't know what happened. I don't know. Well, what you just wrote there, I think it's that. Okay, so that's the core seed of it. Well, he broke down a few weeks ago and said that, he's become bored and he wants to be single. These are grounds to break up for some people. That was a seedling that was being watered by him, and you were thinking, oh, maybe you're just having a bad day because you couldn't relate. Before he met me, he was a world traveler, having gone to some 40 countries in 2 years. He then ran out of money and got into video editing and SEO work online. He does pretty well now, and he's been hinting for the last year. There you go. Hinting for the last year that he can do his work anywhere in the world, and that he really wants to go back to Portugal where he has good friends. All right, so this is one of those things. 2 days ago, now he's blocked me on it. I just broke up with my boyfriend. Now he's blocked. I actually have his wallet. I've been trying to get a hold of him. His mom just contacted me today and told me she would pick it up. So all this, the way you started is like, oh my God, like, can't believe this is happening. When you write this out, people that are world travelers, that are adventure seekers, especially very adventurous people that seek out challenges, They're very interesting partners, but if they haven't got that all out of their system, they probably won't. They probably will find a way to pick adventure or challenge or travel over you again. They like to be stimulated by these things. It's not personal. They're more likely to cheat also. So, people that are adventure seekers, doesn't mean all the time, but it goes with their character and personality. Currently, we live in Southern California. I love my job, which is a family business. So right there, you have two different paths. You're in a family business. You live in SoCal. You haven't mentioned that you're a world traveler. You haven't mentioned, I would love to go to Portugal, which I would love to go to Portugal. Sounds like a great country to go to. Beautiful women, right? So right there, that tells me that you're kind of locked in. You have a family business and you love your job. Okay. He's a world traveler and he's saying he's bored. What happened? You just didn't know when it was going to happen. Currently, we live in I'm not sure if I could commit to moving. In that conversation 3 weeks ago, I didn't think it would decide our relationship. I mean, from what you're saying, and I think you would have said it, he didn't ask you to go with him. He didn't say, hey, will you go with me? Because what he specifically said, if you read that again, I want to be single. And what happens when people plant that seed for them subconsciously for themselves, even if they don't like it, even if they come back to you, they got to see what it's like. And in order for that to happen, you got to break up. He told me that if I didn't want to move to Portugal for a year, he understood, but then he smiled and said, I just might have to go without you. I thought he was joking. Every joke's half true. Okay, always remember that. Then 2 days ago, he just wrote me a long email saying that it's been a great year and a half getting to know and love me, but that he can't see himself staying in California any longer and maybe he'll return. But he plans to go to Peru, then Portugal. He admitted that he had been talking to an old flame online, an ex-girlfriend that was only of 6 months, but I've seen pictures and she's more beautiful than me. Stop looking at those pictures. Okay, so if you want some concrete advice, don't go back and look at those pictures. Delete them if you have access to them. It'll only hurt you. Okay, the idea that you think she's more beautiful than you, that's even more reason. Just don't keep going there. You have power over that. Every time you look at that picture, it's going to hurt you. Stop it. He admitted that he had been talking to an old flame, an ex-girlfriend, 6 months. He said they broke up just because he ran out of money, but that was the first time he felt true love for somebody. I agree that I didn't mind that they still corresponded, but now I'm beating myself up as I know the last time he talked about her, he mentioned she was in Peru. I brushed it off and let it go, but now I'm wondering, should I have set some sort of boundary? I mean, hindsight's 2020. I don't think a person that's adventurous, an adult in a relationship, they don't like to be told what to do anyways. So I don't think you did anything wrong there. If he was talking to someone that was that far away and it wasn't on a regular basis, where he's texting every night, he actually tells you that he's corresponding with her. I think that trusting each other in a relationship and giving him the benefit of the doubt is okay. How far he went with that, who knows? You're just looking at that now and going, I could have set a boundary, but you could have set a boundary and that would have been his reason to leave. So don't think if I would have done this, everything would have been different. A lot of people do that. If I would have done this, everything would have been different. Not necessarily. If I would have took this turn, I wouldn't have gotten this accident. Well, you could have gotten a different accident. Okay, so I think that what's getting glazed over here, you're together a year and a half. A year and a half, you're still getting to know each other. Okay? He is a world traveler of 40 countries. That's going to influence him to not want to stay in one place, let alone not his favorite place. If you've been to 40 countries, I've been to maybe 5 or 6. It's different. I've lived in 4 places. When I say I lived somewhere 4 different places, it's really interesting because a lot of people, they've only lived in like 2 places. It seasons you. And if the places are quite different, you look at the world differently. And if he wasn't which a lot of people aren't happy with California right now. I'm from California originally. This could be a geographic, demographic thing that he just wasn't going to stand for. Now, the girlfriend in Peru is a whole nother thing. Is that a possibility? I don't think he was cheating on you. If he was, maybe it was online. The idea that you would have set this boundary and it would have changed everything, I don't think so. Okay. A year and a half, this is what happens in a year and a half relationship sometimes. You get shocked because you don't know them as well as you think sometimes. And that's okay. Because if you can accept that you didn't know, then you don't have to blame yourself. Oh, I could have done this. I could have done that. This is a situation that was going to happen anyways, probably. All right. I brushed it off. I let it go. I'm wondering, should I have set the boundary? I also talked to a friend of his that said he's been talking to multiple women for years, that he's got love affairs in multiple countries, and that I should just let him go. Wow, that's a good friend, huh? His friend just throws him under the bus. Let him go. But then his friend asked me out to dinner, which I thought was weird. I went out with him as friends only for him to offer me multiple shots of tequila, and then we ended up hooking up. All right, so now I'm wondering, will this get back to my ex? I kind of hope it gets him jealous because it always felt like he wasn't completely into the relationship. All right, so we got a few different things going on there. First of all, you're a grown adult. So, you taking shots and going out with your ex's best friend and then getting intimate, don't blame, he kept giving me shots. He's the one that asked me out. You had some choices to make in this too. You were probably feeling a bit vulnerable. But the idea that you secretly feel like maybe this will get him jealous, maybe. That being said, I never recommend going that route because if you're wrong, you feel even worse, right? You feel even worse trying to stage something like this. It sounds like, and that's what's dangerous. Like post breakup, you go out and you have a bunch of tequila shots. You're not yourself. You're open and you hook up and now you regret it. This isn't going to repair some guy. And this is where it comes in. I mentioned earlier, he's in another country. He's gone for not anytime soon is he going to come back. That being said, if anyone was going to maybe forgive you for hooking up with their friend, a world traveler, or a guy like this, he might do it, right? I would also keep in mind any information that you're getting from this friend is probably a little jaded because this friend actually likes you, okay? And just out of curiosity, if we were doing a live coaching session, I'd ask you, how much do you like this friend? I'm going with sorry. So the friend told me that he's got love affairs in multiple countries and that I should let him go. But his friend asked me out to dinner, which I thought was weird. I went out with his friend only for him. Okay, sorry. I kind of hope it gets him jealous because it always felt like he was completely into the relationship. I'm going with no contact now, and I'll just have to deal with it. But honestly, I'm looking at flights to go to Peru and confront him or surprise him. Don't do that. I wouldn't recommend that. His friend said I'd be disappointed to know that he would actually run from such a thing and that he's never been a guy that stays in one place long. I mean, if you're going to do something like that, it's not going to be a surprise. Okay? If your goal, check your intentions and what you want. You want to get him back? If you want to get him back, you'd have to have some correspondence directly from him saying, hey, I want you to come to Peru and see what it's like. Hey, I think it would be really great if you came out here for 2 weeks. Maybe you'd want to stay longer. He's got to do, because I mean, the meltdown of you confronting him, it's going to really hurt if he rejects you and you're in another country and you don't have any friends or family around you or anything familiar. Okay? So don't do it. All right? Don't do it. That's just one of those ones I rarely tell people like, oh, yeah, you can do it. That particular one. No. If he invited you or he made some contact with you and he'd hinted that he wanted to come see you, then maybe go. But this isn't a good one. His friend said I'd be disappointed. Like I said, his friend, I wouldn't take any more advice from the friend. If you want to start a relationship with a friend, fine. Getting info on your ex through his friend that's already hooked up with you, no bueno. Okay? I'd be disappointed to know that he would actually run from such a thing and that he's never been a guy that stays in one place long. I'm lost as I thought we really had something here. I feel blindsided. But then my sister told me that she always knew he would leave one day. All right, your sister isn't a psychic. People do this all the time. What did I miss, and what's the best way to get through this? I would book a live coaching session with myself, and we'll go a little deeper. You've been together a year and a half, so there's more rabbit holes to go down. The idea that you got to accept that he's gone right now, and it wasn't your fault. He's a traveler. He's been wanting to do this. He also said he wants to be single. When someone says they want to be single, it's not always directly because they're not attracted to you or they don't like you anymore. Part of it is they just like independence. They like options. They don't want to get married. They don't want to have kids. And so timing and circumstances, if they're in their 20s, early 30s, a lot of time in their life, it's not preferable to be in a relationship with restrictions. And that could be one of those things. It's not personal. Okay. So that would be the first part of it. This idea that you didn't make a boundary with the girl in Peru, that wouldn't have made a difference, I don't think. So don't beat yourself up over that. That's a good question to ask because that's probably something that's been running through your mind a lot. If you like the guy that's the friend that you've hooked up with once before, then go out with him. That's fine. Just know that he's not a friend to get information from because it's a conflict of interest. Now you know that he likes you, he's attracted to you, so he's going to be feeding you things that are highly biased that will go against you liking your boyfriend again. Can you see that? Right? And the other part of this is if you're really happy in SoCal and you said, I love my job, which is like, if you love your job and it's a family business, that's a double stamped thing that you could be grateful for because if it's a family business, you have some sort of control over where it's headed, I would hope. Secondly, just loving your job or your career, period, is not something to mess with. Okay. And so right now you have roots, right? Unless you could do your business in another country, but you just never seemed interested in being a world traveler. If that's the case, regardless of how this breakup happened or where it went down, probably was never going to be much longer than the year and a half you've been together. Maybe it was 2 years, maybe it was 3 years. But when you're thinking to yourself, what happened? Just go to that moment. It's like 3 weeks ago, he told me he's been thinking about being single and he feels like life has become boring. That's your answer. Is that your fault? I don't think so. Doesn't sound like it. Could you have been more adventurous and wanted to travel more? Sure. It just doesn't line up with you. Maybe it doesn't line up with your finances. Maybe you don't like leaving the country too much. If that's the case, you guys had a lot of good experiences and stuff like that. If you don't want to change into that person, then fine. Now, if he reaches out to you and talks to you and says he wants you to come to Peru or I really miss you, then you could go to Peru and maybe go see him. That's fine. So I hope that helps you. If any of you out there have a story you want to share, go to writemac.com and send it in. If someone in the live stream right now has a question or comment, go ahead and shoot. All right. Let me just take it. I got one more on deck here that's a little shorter. All right. So, hello, Coach Mac. I am in a breakup where we keep getting back together, but then she tells me that she can't forgive me for cheating. This has come up a lot in different coaching sessions that I've helped people through. This is really tough. So someone breaks up over cheating, they get back together, love prevails, and then the person keeps bringing it up. They keep bringing it up. They keep bringing it up. And the other person was like, when can we let this go? Very, very common. She can't forgive me for cheating, which happened 3 months ago, and I told her everything. I feel like we made up 3 times over this, and she forgave me. Then out of nowhere, she'll bring it up and not let it go. She'll go through my phone all the time now, and I'm not hiding anything. I've actually gone out of my way to make her feel special. I even bought her a diamond bracelet and a promise ring. So my question would be like, did you buy the diamond bracelet and the promise ring thinking that this would make up for everything, or is that something you wanted to do? Do you want to marry her? Do you want to be with her forever? She accepted both with tears and happiness, only to have her trip out 2 nights later after my phone buzzed while we were in bed and she thought it was a girl. I was thought it was the girl I was half seeing. I guess the hardest part is she knows the chick. We all went to junior college together, and they are complete opposites. They didn't really know each other well, but my girlfriend is really outgoing and talkative, and the girl I hooked up with is kind of quiet and reserved. We just got close because we had to do an internship and at the same company, and then we just started going to lunch every day. The internship ended, and so did our meetup soon after, and now she's got a guy she's seeing full time. So this is really common how people end up cheating. It's not intentional all the time. They work with someone, they see them regularly. And here's the weird thing. The people you work with, you spend more time with them sometimes than the people that you actually are in a relationship with. That's what's crazy. So like he did an internship, maybe their schedules lined up. They went to lunch together. They got closer and closer and closer. And the thing is, it's like, then someone's like, oh, they just premeditated cheating. No, that's what happens a lot of times. That's why cheating happens at work a lot of times. And him as a guy is like, I never had the feelings I had for her that I had for you, right? He never thought he was going to get caught. All right. So she's got a guy she's seeing full time. The guy knows about me and hates me too. I don't care because I was never really going to be in a serious relationship with her. It was just fun. I will admit on occasion she does text me, and once this last month, it was a dirty text, which I responded to, and somehow my ex found out. Even though I changed my password code on my phone, I've been watching. All right, so just to let you know, I've been doing this a while, and I don't know how to do it. I don't know what program or what, but the various devices where people talk online, whether that's social media like Instagram, Facebook, WhatsApp is not social media. These things that you use to text each other, there are some ways, because I've had clients do it, I don't know how, where they can track everything that you're doing or track all your text. I don't know if they hire someone in the comments when they watch this video later on can maybe say how they've used it. I don't know. I've had multiple clients that find a way to track their partner's text. And they actually, the crazy thing is, a majority of them do it after they've already realized that you're cheating. So that what they'll do is, this is very common, they'll ask you questions that they know the answer to, like, oh, have you heard from your ex recently? And you're like, no, I haven't talked to her in 10 years. And they're like, oh, really? I was just wondering. So you haven't talked to anyone that you, and what they're doing is they're like, oh, they lied again. Oh, they lied again. They're just setting you up. And I don't know why this is such a common theme, because the person won't break up. They won't confront. They'll just keep wanting to reaffirm that they have this information and you're lying to them. The problem with this is you've just admitted, basically, you got a promise ring on your girl's hand, a diamond bracelet. You want to get together, but then you admit last month there was a dirty text between us. All right, so like that takes you 2 steps back rather than 2 steps forward. The problem when someone sees a dirty text it's very hard to get that image out of their heads. And it's absolute proof. There's no questioning of it. And if you responded to it with, wow, or yeah, let's meet up later, it crushes the other person in a lot of ways. And like I said, there's no, oh, maybe it's this, oh, maybe it's that. It's like it's an absolute. So the fact that she found out and you're kind of disappointed, even though you have your code change, I don't think you're ready to give a promise ring. And if you get to a point where you just can't be forgiven, you got to let the relationship go, because you're never going to forgive yourself, and you're never going to get back. And sometimes, you know what? That's the way it is. Like, you don't get a second chance, because if the relationship's going to continue that way, where they're going to pull that on you for the next year, 2 years, 3 years, and there's some people in relationships that get married, have kids, 10 years later, the husband or the wife's bringing up, oh, I remember when I was pregnant and you were cheating. Like, they never let it go. And so what I would say, you haven't mentioned how old you are. I'm going to assume you said junior college, so you're in your 20s, probably. Maybe you're not ready for a long-term relationship. Maybe you both need to, instead of trying to work on this and get her back all the time, let her go for a little while and say, hey, look, I've done the best I could. I don't have any interest in this other girl. Yeah, you caught me in a dirty text, but she's talking to someone else. But also, like, you need to look in the mirror and ask yourself, do I really want to be in a relationship with this woman? And here's the best question to ask in your 20s. Is this the last woman I'll ever be with in my life? Because are you going to get married? Is this the last one you'll ever be with in your life? Can you honestly say that, or does that make you cringe? If that makes you cringe, maybe you have to let this relationship go, put yourself back out there, and stop playing this game like, she's water in the desert and it's the only show in town. Because it sounds like if it's been 3 months and you keep getting batted over the head for the same thing, it's not going away. And the unfortunate part of that is you start to feel worse and worse, and it actually will bleed over into other interactions in the relationship, where you feel like you can't say what you want to say or stand up for yourself, because that's going to get brought up, if you know what I mean. So you're always at this disadvantage. And I've had clients in these relationships who are like, damn, if we get in a fight or we talk about something, then she always brings up when I cheated on her. And in those particular situations, you might have to let the relationship go, because it just makes you relive the victim role that she has, and then the role that you somehow did this on purpose. I've been watching a lot of videos and they say all different things, but the main question is, how do I get her to forgive me and stop bringing it up? You can't make someone forgive you. Okay. There's no yellow brick road to, oh yeah, they're gonna, if I do this, and this, it's different for different people. Time heals things the best. And, number one, you need to forgive yourself. If you don't forgive yourself, then you're going to put yourself in positions where you keep forgiving for the same thing over and over again, and that just makes it live on. So first and foremost, you have to get to a point where you're like, I was accountable, I was honest, I told the truth, I fell on the sword, and I can live with that. Like, what is that? What do I mean by that? It means that, yeah, I cheated, yeah, I did wrong, but I told you the truth. And now it's up to you to forgive me or not. And for me, I don't feel good about it, but I'm sorry. Sorry does not have more power saying it 15 times. Right? And if they can't see that, that's okay. They don't have to forgive you. And you loosening up the reins of trying to get that forgiveness actually leads to them getting more space and processing it and figuring out what they want to do. Sometimes if there's something that's unforgivable, you need to break up for a little while, because if you look at your friends and family members, this is a really good way to look at it. If you have a friend or family member pass away or is in a position where they're facing near death, don't you just, anything that you had against that person, don't you let it go? Most people do. Some don't, but most people do. They're not like, oh, someone's in the hospital, they're on a respirator, and you're like, oh, I remember when you did this to me. They let it all go. You're going to let it go at some point. You look back at a bully you had in 6th grade or someone that stole your bike when you were little and you had a grudge for years and you're like, oh, I forgot about that. Time's going to heal it at some point. On the flip side, if you're having it brought up in the relationship over and over and over again and they're not ready to do that, you got to let them go and go, hey, you know what? This isn't working. I said I was sorry. I forgave myself. It was wrong what I did. But they're just reliving it over and over again. And maybe they can't get over it anytime soon. And maybe they can't get over it with you being around them. And that's called acceptance. And that's another bridge to forgiveness, is to accept that you're not going to be able to give them a diamond bracelet and a promise ring and make it go away. The other thing I would suggest is maybe doing some hypnotherapy, some EFT, emotional freedom technique tapping. These are things that I do that are nice tools that are a little deeper than just talking. So a lot of things that you do with coaching and therapy is talking. Hypnotherapy is a little deeper practice. EFT's more interactive, and both those things may help. So I would say, looking outside the box. Now, saying that, she has to want to forgive you. Some individuals, there's a secondary gain in having something over your head because whenever you have a fight, they can win. Right? The client I had in the past, he was like, we couldn't argue because we'd argue about something and then she'd bring up the fact that I talked to my ex and she would just immediately win the argument. Right? All right, let me get into the chat. We got 10 on deck. Anyone that wants to get active or have any questions, go ahead. If you have a story you want to share, you want to jump on the show today, you're more than welcome. I haven't heard from many people, so I've been talking for 40 minutes straight. Excuse me. Justin Brown, how you doing? It's been a minute. I hope you're well. How you doing, Petty Betty? I'm forgiving, but I can't forget, so it's better off we break up. Really, in a lot of cases, I think it is. I think, when I say I think, it's my opinion. I just was listening to this audiobook, a highly spiritual book, and they said, and I'm going to say this wrong, you can't push a river. Now think about that. You can't push a river to move faster. So, and that's how your life is. So a lot of times we're trying to speed up things. Like, for example, he's got timestamps on this. It's been 3 months since I've broken up, and there's been 3 times that she made me forgive her again. It's like you're in a rush to get forgiven. You're trying to push the river of forgiveness. And the reality is the river's going to move at its own pace. You know what I mean? Rivers don't get pushed. They get dammed up, which isn't a good thing. But they don't get pushed to move faster. They move at their own pace with nature. And right now you're going like, oh, it's been 3 times. It's been 3 months. She should be over it. Not really. Right? And people forgive in their own ways, but time happens. A client of mine just reached out on Instagram, sent me a message. And he had come to me about 3.5, 4 years ago, I want to say. Had a breakup where they were seeing each other for 6 months, I believe 6 or 7 months, and it was really good for him. She had a couple kids, and she had an ex that was the kid's dad. And when she broke up with him, she told him, she's like, look, I just got to be honest. The intimacy isn't there, and I still have feelings for my ex. So he had 2 things he was left with. That is that the intimacy wasn't good and that she still had feelings for ex. And it hurt him. It crushed him. He was dealing with it, but he didn't chase. He didn't try to talk her out of it. He didn't call her a bunch of names. He didn't tell her like she's making a big mistake, even though this guy was quote unquote a good guy, willing to take on her kids. Was at a really good place in his life. And now, I think, like I said, it's 3.5 years later. He said she came back. They've been dating for a few months and they're getting married. Now, someone from the outside is like, oh my God, I can't believe he took her back. Why not? She was honest Like, here's the thing that's really interesting. Everyone wants honesty, but can you handle the truth? As the great Jack Nicholson said. Like, that took a lot of courage for her to tell him the truth. She told him the truth, like, hey, these are my real feelings. And I believe when she told him that, she wasn't, sometimes like, she didn't like the fact that she missed her ex. She wanted to like him. She wanted to like him more. And the thing is, he didn't have any wreckage on the road. He had been broken up for years. He knew what he wanted. He knew what he was in for. So this new relationship, she just wasn't ready. And she told him the exact reasons why. He took it in stride. And then 3.5 years later, when things lined up and she came back, the road was clear. It was like, all right, because she told the truth, because he let her go, 3 years later, he didn't bring up like, what about this? What about that? It was like, no, let's go out and see what happens again. He hadn't met anyone since then that knocked his socks off, so to say. All right, fine. Right? So, people think that, in a moment, everything's figured out, but you can't push the river of time. So now 3.5 years later, they're in a better position. It's better timing for both of them. She's quote unquote, I assume, which I don't like to assume, over her ex. It's been 3 years now. And sometimes people need to go back to an ex to realize why they broke up in the first time. Because the first time you break up, sometimes you're just lonely. And you'll do anything to get back together, and you don't have a replacement. You don't have a void. The second time you break up, you're like, all right, I'm sick of you. We didn't. I don't know why the internet just went off there. We have a little storm coming in and out. All right. Petty Betty says, make a wish. It's 111. We got 8 on deck. Like I said before, anyone that wants to hop in and ask a question or a topic that you want me to go over in a future thing, go ahead and shoot. I'll give you guys a few minutes because I know there's a little bit of a delay sometimes when things come in. Can't push a river. What's up, Truth of Love? How are you, buddy? The Great Clutch. Can't push a river, man. It's so crazy because when you look back at other times in your life, right, Ben, and you think about things you thought you were never going to get over, or you think about things that seem like the fucking end of the world. Maybe you didn't have any moments like that. Maybe your life was, really, chummy when you were a kid, right? Those are the people like they're going to have a lot of trouble. They're going to have a lot of trouble because life at some point, it's going to smack you in the head. It's just what it is, man. Right? So, congratulations, man. The truth of love is in love. I'm really happy for you, bud. Good. Are you guys in Chile or California now? And if you don't want to say that on the air, that's okay. I don't think it's too top secret. People still get married these days. Man. Okay, good. Good for you, man. Good for you. I'd like to go to Chile one day. Seems like a nice country. Married. Wow, man. And this is that could be a book, Pickup Artist to Marriage. What was the bridge that took you there? Huh? You know what's really interesting is I have so Truth or Love or Clutch had a period in time. I don't think he minds me mentioning this, that he was in the pickup artist community. You've talked about it before, and you were years into that. Pua. From Pua to psychopath to being settled. Great, man. That'd be great on Reddit, right? And you're good with words. Maybe you want to do something with that. So I follow Neil Strauss on Instagram, right? So when I use Instagram, fought it for a long time because I don't really want to be a part of social media too much. Shows my age. But for coaching and things like that, it stays connected with your clients. I know I got to use it. So I check it daily. Anyhow, Neil Strauss, I don't want to say he's the father of pickup artists or Puas, but he's a big part. He's a big player, right? He's not, maybe he's not number one, but the game and those kinds of things. And all his posts, whenever you see a post on Instagram, it's all about trauma, relationships, and it's just heavy. I looked at him when he wrote that book, The Game, as being kind of this fun character, kind of curious and open, discovering some things about himself and life. Great writer. And now everything's channeled to, well, everything's like, if I pull up some of the stuff, everything's heavy. It's like he's a clinical therapist now. All his quotes are related to trauma. Do you know what I mean by this? I mean, I'm in a space as a coach, someone that's studied hypnotherapy and now practices that also. But it's almost like he's a much different character than the person that wrote that book. He bought into mainstream for sure. The first one to bring attention to it was Ross Jeffries. Well, I just mean, like, it's okay that you wrote this book, you're not a pickup artist anymore. That's totally fine. And he wrote the book, The Truth, where he comes to light about, some of his issues with his family, which, if anyone's read the book, The Truth, great book, captivating. Neil Strauss is a good writer. But I always thought he's kind of a cool dude. Like, when I hear him interviewed, he's got this down-to-earth kind of attitude. I feel like his Instagram, like someone else is writing the stuff. Like, he's trying to get everyone in these trauma groups. Everything's about trauma. Everything's about overcoming your trauma. Mark Manson, same thing. The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck, great writer. Everything's about trauma. Everything's about self-improvement. It's a natural transition for someone who grew up without guidance, going from not knowing how to deal with women to learning manipulation to getting burned, hitting rock bottom. Do you feel like, Clutch, the pickup community, a majority of the guys that get into that or got into that in the past, it was an overcompensation because things were so dry and difficult when they were teenagers? If that makes sense, the way I'm wording that. Like, I'll just pull up really quick some of these quotes that come up. Okay. Let's see this. Hold on a second. Let me get through the cat videos first. So this is an example of like Neil Strauss now. When we feel less than around someone because they are doing well, to restore our sense of self, we sometimes feel a need to shame them and to make them wrong instead of looking at our own reactions. Don't play the game if they're not okay, then I'm okay. This can apply just as much to someone who is in the center of attention for a moment and appear like it's always, this guy is a writer for Rolling Stone. Like the way he wrote before is not like this. And they're all messages like this. Let's see another one. To live a happier life, avoid making plans, schedules, possessions, trivial preferences, or your way of doing things more important than the people you care about. One of the best ways to tell if someone is operating out of a wound is to listen. If they are trying to justify a thought or feeling through a logic that doesn't hold up or contradicts itself, it's a trauma reaction. This is the guy that wrote The Game. This is the guy that wrote I've heard it said that psychotherapy is all about blaming parents for one's miseries. Quite the contrary. The more sensitive we are to the fragility of the human psyche, the more likely we forgive parents for being woundable and wounding. I mean, talk about a 360, man. You can't get enough of what you won't satisfy you. It's just, and it just seems like this narrative, it's crazy because it's like I said, it's heavy. I'd like him to joke around once in a while. Like, can we joke a little bit? Can we? There's a part of you that's not this therapeutically polished, if you know what you know what I mean. Does that make sense? Like, do we have to use all this? I mean, losing everything does quite a bit to make you humble. Breakups when you're desperate for affirmation, as most puas are. So one of the things I think I've talked about in a live stream before that always stood out to me about that book, The Truth by Neil Strauss, not The Truth of Love, was like he didn't have extremely, from the way he described it, abusive parents. Like it wasn't an extreme thing. Both his parents, I believe, stayed together. He had a brother. But Clutch, do you remember what he revealed about his father in that book? I just thought, damn, dude, in the process of writing a book, he's already a famous author. You revealed that about your dad? Like, do you remember what he said about his dad? That was kind of like, and he made his dad's secret a big part of the book. Do you want me to reveal what that secret was if anyone's on deck? Because he starts out the book and he's like, I got to go back to it because it's been years since I've listened to that on Audible. But he starts out the book about his dad having these videos hidden in the closet. And you're like, okay. And he goes, I would have never bet what that was, these videos in the closet. I would hope his dad gave the green light too, right? I mean, because like I said, it wasn't like he was never talking to his dad again. Like I said, from what it sounded like on the levels of trauma, it wasn't that traumatic. His dad wasn't a bad alcoholic. His dad wasn't a wife beater. I'm going extreme here, or high. You know what I mean? So, what he told in that book, did you ask your dad first? And by the way, it's like, dude, you made your dad's embarrassing thing a root of the book. I mean, during the book, you're like, what was on those videos? Because he starts out the story talking about that, and you're thinking like, well, what was it? What was it? But in the back of my head, I'm like, dude, you threw your dad under the bus though. Like I said, your dad's okay with this. I mean, obviously, his dad's not in the limelight or anything like that, but real like you know what I mean. And some of that book too, there was another part of that book where he's in therapy. And he's documenting the therapy. So he's in therapy because he cheated on his wife, the love of his life, his girlfriend. Right? And that's how it starts. Like he cheated. He can't help himself. And it's kind of funny because the guys that would read his book would think it's kind of cool that he can't help himself and he's still a player. Right? So he's not really throwing himself under the bus at all. But he's acting like it's, like this is so tough and he met the love of his life and he's talking about his wife. So he gets in these therapy groups. Right? I'll tell you in a moment, Petty Betty. I'll tell you in a moment because you'll be shocked. I'm looking for $100 super chat before I reveal it. No, I'm just joking. So you'll be shocked. And that's why, like I said, when he wrote the book, at first I was like, what is it? What is it? Surprisingly, yeah, it's what'd you just call it? Fetish, right? I guess you'd call it a fetish, yeah. So he goes into these, I'll come to the secret in a moment, just be patient with me. So Ben's like, nah, I'm already looking it up, dude. So he goes in these in this therapy group, and the woman calls him out immediately and is like, you're probably just trying to write a book. And if you're trying to write a book, don't be using this information in a book and all this stuff. And in the middle of that, right? He's telling the lady, oh, I'm not here to write the book. I'm really here for therapy. And I'm like, dude, you're writing the book. She's right. You're using your therapy, which is okay. I don't mind. I mean, the book was pretty good. He's a good writer, man. He's a really good writer. And I'm like, you just lied to her, lied to the group. Like the people that are in your group, you're including them in the book. Like if I was in hardcore therapy, because he was in therapy where like they had to hold a stick before they talked, I remember, and all this stuff, and you included me in your book, you better fucking ask me, dude. Right? And something like that. If I'm revealing different things. And like I said, he told the lady that was the head counselor or whatever, oh, I'm not trying to write a book. Oh, no, I'm not. And I'm like, you're writing it right now as I'm listening to it in the gym on the Audible. Now, do you guys want to know the secret? Paul D already looked it up. You want to know what it is? Put it in the comments below. It's all right. So what it was that the dad, I don't even know if those videos were porn necessarily, but he was into women that had handicaps, like a brace on your leg. And I could get this wrong, so correct me if I'm wrong, Clutch. But yeah, handicap or like something wrong with your arm or something like that. And actually, I've had another client that he said he's attracted to that too. So it's a fetish, right? And his mom had I don't know what it was, some kind of knee brace or some kind of ailment where her leg wasn't regular, right? And so amputation fetish, is that what it was? I knew Clutch would know exactly what it was. I don't remember. I just remember being handicapped and being like, wow, that's shocking that that's a fetish for some people. But you know what? There's all kinds of fetishes are born in a weird way a lot of times too, right? So when you look back at it, it's not harmful to those people that have that. And it's good for them to find a partner that appreciates that about them. So it's not that bad. My point was he used his dad's, what I would say for some people or some walks of life would be a fetish that you might want to keep out of the open, which, if you know what, at this stage of my life, nothing surprises me or nothing. And I wouldn't, if someone said that to me and they were like, oh, like I said, I have a client he doesn't call it his fetish, but he's like, I've always been attracted to women like that. Okay. I don't think there's a harm in that. You're not hurting people. My point with him was he made his dad the centerpiece of the story. I just remember thinking, damn, dude, you threw your dad under the bus like that? I was just shocked. I was like, damn, like you said, Clutch, it's like, did you get the green light from your dad? Did you let your dad know, like, hey, I'm going to write this up? I'm gonna make it one of the biggest parts of the story. Like, look what I just did right now in the live stream where I was like, hey, there's a secret, and then I left it alone. He did that in the book. He brought it up in the beginning and he came back to it, I don't know, like in the end of the book. He didn't tell it right away. Is that Rule 34? Rule 34 of what rules? I've never heard that before, but it's probably true, right? Yeah, amputation. This is just crazy. It's like it's like, dude, do you have a relationship with your dad still after and I believe his mom had the ailment or the amputation of some sort, right? And so, like, I'm sure the mom didn't want that. My dad has one leg from a logging accident. He got a pamphlet at the hospital warning him about women who have a leg. Okay. And you know what? That's, dude, when you look at it, you're like, really? Huh. Now, that's funny you said that, Ben. I shouldn't say that's funny you said that, but you have a good enough sense of humor to know that what I mean. I don't mean it's funny about the accident. But, thanks, Paul D. I don't think I had another client. This is actually a true story. He wouldn't mind mentioning this either. So he had a girlfriend and he was in his early 50s. Okay. He was in his early 50s and he had been married like 20 plus years, maybe 25 years. And he had 3 kids. All his kids went to college. They had a nice house. Really nice guy. Right? Like when we did coaching sessions and stuff, he liked to joke around. We really had some good sessions. But he had been married 25 years, had 20 to 25 years. He said the marriage was great. And then the last 2 or 3 years, his wife just basically said, I don't want to sleep together anymore. Like, I'm old. I don't like to do it anymore. I'm just not there. And he was like, I still got juice in the engine, right? I'm still ready to go. And so he said he tried to do it for 2 or 3 years, and then they ended up getting divorced, and they were on good terms. He was on great terms with his kids. He had a great job. So he started dating this woman, and he was beside himself on how good the intimacy was with this woman. That they would, meet up at hotels and they would do these things, and then they lived together for a little while. They had been together for like 2.5, 3 years, and then she moved back to her house, I believe, who her and her ex-husband still owned together, right? Which is a possibility for some financial reason for her kids. And the husband was in a hunting accident, and I'm not sure if he lost his leg or had so much damage on his leg he couldn't walk. But it might have been where he lost his leg. But he was out of commission. Like, he needed someone to help take care of him, right? So even though the wife had been divorced from him for 18 years, they were friends. And the guy that was my client had been with this girlfriend for 2.5, 3 years. And by all means, it was rose petals and wine glasses with them, right? They were in great shape. This guy gets in that hunting accident. He moves back in with her so she can take care of him, which it was her pleasure to do so because she was kind of the caregiver type. She was a nurse. So she was like, I have to do this. So my client's like, yeah, I understand, right? And he said he'd even go over there, and the guy'd be in the living room watching TV or something, and they were cordial, and he was like, dude, it was weird because he didn't say dude, but he was like, this is weird. I'm going into handle some business in the other room and hook up with his ex-wife, and he's just hanging, I know that probably affects him. But here's what happened. Once the guy moved in, he never moved out. And he never got off needing her help. And so my client got to the point where he was like, you need to kick him out. And she was like, I can't, because he's got this ailment. He needs me. And it's not about love. It's more about being significant, right? And this was something that if you get into the psychological part of it, when she was a kid, she was the person that took care of her dad when dad had problems, and she took care of her mom. So and she's a nurse. So it was an identity thing. So she was like, there's no way I'm going to turn my back on him. It had nothing to do with love, but maybe this is part of it when, people that have these amputee things, the ability to be significant in those people's lives and have to take care of them. I wonder if that's part of it. But it's interesting that Ben just shed light on that. I'm not surprised if you think about it like that too, because there's people that want to be caregivers, that want to be important. Significance is so important in human beings. It's like some of my clients that live alone, right? Yeah, they like their quiet time, things like that. I've lived alone off and on in my life, and it's all right. If you still need, if you go to work, if you're significant at work, it's important to be significant somewhere in your life. And so, significance means you're important to a group. So like the family element, the dad or the mom's important in a classic sense, right? If they're doing it right. They're important in getting food in their mouths and teaching kids good lessons and showing good habits, ... But when you look further, when people get older and they don't, maybe they don't build a family right away because things are different now. They find significance at work. Like if you're really good at your job and you're needed at your job, then you get significance there. But people find it in different ways. And I would say that if you had a partner that had an ailment, that's definitely some significance. They need you. It's very important to find your significance, right? It's one of the reasons I really enjoy the work I do. It's a significant job. It's significant to help people out with their problems or their issues when they're really down. And you get more out of that. Got a lot out of it as a teacher. She's a good woman. Well, I mean, the crazy thing about that story, Petty Betty, that client was from 2.5, 3 years ago. He was upset. He had it. There was another caveat to the story that she had an alcohol and drinking problem. And so that made things kind of worse. It does feel good helping others through some hard stuff. Absolutely. You heard it. I heard it before. I told that story before. Sorry. My live streams are getting redundant. I only have so many stories in my head, huh? It's interesting when you unpack things like that, huh? Like, there's 7 random people on this right now, and Ben just chimes in like, I don't know that about Ben's dad or anything, but that's interesting when you threw that in, warning about women who have one-legged guys as a fetish. Not surprised. I need to start dating so you could have some stories to talk about. It's funny you said that because I was just hanging out with a former university student of mine. So he's in his late 20s now, 26. And he was asking me about marriage and dating and some other things I won't get into. But before I left, where he works is this like restaurant area, like kind of a busy area. And he was kind of like, I was finishing up my food and stuff like that. And I'm like, all right, we're going to go. And then he said, what do you think of that? What do you think about that girl over there? I think I'm going to talk to her. I'm like, what do you got to lose? 26, you're single. Who cares? And he's like, yeah, I know. And I'm like, and if it doesn't work, you'll have a great story to tell me. He's like, you're right, huh? You're right. I'm like, tell me the story about how she turned you down or how she laughed at your face. I go, that's a great story. They call it a stump, even a sexy name. I had an Uncle George who was actually like my great uncle, my mom's uncle. And he had I don't even know if they would still do it the way he had it, but he had a knee brace, like a metal knee brace, almost like Forrest Gump had as a kid on one of his legs. And he was built. He was a strong guy. And, you just knew him to have that. And it was outside his jeans all the time. Like I said, I don't know, maybe they would have something else. I had a boyfriend that had a foot fetish, but I think a lot of men do, right? Not me. I used to always had to send him feet pics. It's funny you say that because I would definitely say not me. No, I don't think most men have that. Think that it's common. It's really common, but most men, that's a stretch. I don't know. I'll tell you this. I don't like nasty feet. So I wouldn't say I had a foot fetish, but I don't like when a woman doesn't take care of her feet. Like if there's, if they are hard to look at. As you know, the great Petty Betty, I used to sell shoes when I was in college in my early years. And so I've seen some feet before. I've seen some feet. I had a couple of exes with foot thing. I never understood it, but I am a giver. I've never had one that's a foot fetish. That being said, I've had a couple of girlfriends say I have nice feet. I would say that I appreciate if someone has nice feet. It says something about the way you take care of yourself, right? That you clean well, right? That you don't have, because feet can look a little funky, actually. Feet can look a little, they can be all over the place. People used to ask me this when I sold shoes. It's like, oh, you have to touch. I was like, I don't touch their feet. I lay down the shoes on the ground. Yeah, I do. I don't know where you saw my feet before, but I do have I clean, nice feet. I like my feet. Foot thing. Yeah, what made me think about that is I actually worked with a girl or woman when I worked at the shoe place, and she got into that. Like we were just talking, she was a cashier at that store. She was like 20, 23, 24, we're 20s. And she was like, oh, you don't like feet? You don't like to suck on feet? And I'm like, no, it's gross. And she was going on and on about it. Like, really? Like I was going to get amped up over it. And I'm like, no. She's like, you just got to try it. I'm like, I will never try sucking feet. Thank you. I respect that that's your thing, but no. Oh, my dad didn't take care of his feet, but yeah, growing up, I take care. You know what I mean? Like, I don't even want to go into it, but like there's some people you're just like, geez, man. One time you said you did, and I told you you'd show me, and you lift it up. Oh, I did. Oh, on a coaching call, maybe. One thing that helps is that I go to the beach and I don't wear shoes. If you can get yourself to a point where you don't wear shoes at the beach, that's, your feet are just, the skin's perfect. That's just a luxury of living close to a beach. I always don't get that when people wear shoes at the beach, especially like flip-flops. You're going to wear shoes on the beach. I'm looking into online dating more. Any suggestions on what sites to use? It is. And you get grounded if you're familiar with grounding. So, like, it's one of the greatest natural things you can do for your energy and all those other things. BW, I would say that Hinge, I've had a lot of clients say that they like better than, say, Tinder. I would say it's probably going to be different depending on where you live, but just get out there and get up there. The pictures count. I'm not telling you to put on makeup and go over the top. But if you're like me and you don't, know how to take pictures with the light and all that other stuff, get one of your friends that's into photography or something like that. There's a few things that you're not seeing or doing that would make you look a little better, not unauthentic, but just your best. So just make sure that the pictures count. Cause even Sex with Gods, which you missed yesterday, Clutch, he was on, he sent in, he's got a YouTube channel. He's a client of mine. And, he was on a dating site a while back. And I was like, just redo your pictures. The other thing I would add is that, don't make your profile too long. I don't think you'll do it so much, Ben, but like some people, they want to tell their life story. Leave some stuff up to mystery. But I think there's another one that connects people. I want to say it's something with a B, but maybe it was Hinge. It connects people through their Facebooks. So I think, means I don't know. That it finds people that you are like 6 degrees of separation. Like it finds people that you're connected to that are friends of friends of friends. And then it puts those in there. My profile. I've never used Facebook. No, I don't think it's called Facebook. No, it wasn't called Facebook dating. It was called something else. This was a couple years back, and he met his wife through it. When I dated, I used multiple sites. It's all about the tone you give. Be serious but funny and easygoing. Well, that sounds like you. It's funny you said serious. In Thailand, serious is negative. Like, so it translates to extremely, like if you're so serious right now, it's a negative thing. And I always joke around, well, don't you want the pilot of the plane to be serious? Isn't there sometimes when people should be serious? My profile pics were PowerPoint graphs talking about my life. So the PowerPoint graphs didn't have your actual picture? I would say for you, Ben, don't overthink it, man. Just get on there. Get a good picture or two. What's up, Tommy Willis? How you doing, bud? Just get up there, man. Get up there and see what happens, and go on bad dates, as I like to tell people. And the reason I tell people to go on bad dates is because you have better stories to tell and you have nothing to fucking lose. The other thing is when you start doing this dating site thing, and Clutch probably has more experience than I do on dating sites. I'm in no way an expert on them. In no way. I help people with their breakups, relationship issues, things like that. This is feedback clients give me. That being said, I would say that I like the idea when you do commit to dating sites, have a protocol. What do I mean by that? Like, all right, I'm going to, instead of trying to figure out a neat date all the time, because the first time you meet from a dating app, you really don't fucking know each other. it's really a discovery mission times 10. I would tell you the idea of take the thinking out of it and just go, all right, let's meet up for coffee or a drink or something casual that you could peel out of if it's really bad. It's like if you show up and you're like, oh my God, this is a different person. You can, if you met for coffee, you can get out of that quite quickly. You can finish up your coffee. You can be like, oh, you know what? I just got a text or whatever. And then you don't make it so heavy. Or if you go out to dinner, this guy that told me this idea, he lived in New York and he would meet for a happy hour at 5:30. And then if things worked out, they'd get dinner. But he said what would help with that is when it wouldn't work out or was a faulty date, they could just finish their drink and be done. And then that way you're not putting on, like, oh, this girl looks really good. Because I know guys, they make a connection on the dating app and then they'll be like, oh, it's like water in the fucking, desert. They're all excited. It's the hottest girl they've seen on the dating app. They've texted 15 times and they want to set up like really cool date. They go over the top. It's not a bad idea that you're like excited about setting up a cool date and all that stuff. But on the flip side, then you get let down. You show up and you're like, oh, she doesn't look the same, or she's in a bad mood, or she's like, there's all kinds of variables there. Like one of the guys told me that one of the girls that he met on the dating app when they met for happy hour, she slammed like 5 drinks. He came on the live stream one time. She slammed like 5 drinks, got wrecked. And he's like, I took her in a taxi home or a Grab or a Uber. They call it Grab here. And had to drop her off drunk. But I mean, he was laughing about it, which I know people are like, you shouldn't be laughing about. But those are the things you just got to be with the dating app world. It's okay. It's a discovery. You don't know these people, right? I mean, I have one of my really good friends, and she was telling me about a situation where she did a dating app, and the guy showed up at her house the next morning unannounced with like breakfast, wanted to, and he was a little bit aggressive. Like nothing bad happened, but she was scared. And so you don't realize that on the man's side. So the meeting in a public place and doing the same things. A few rules I would live by when I did dating apps. One of them was to get off the app as quickly as possible, get a number, set a date with a week, no sex on the first date. Okay, there you go. What I find a lot of times with the dating apps, Ben, is that people get discouraged by one bad meetup, or the biggest one is the fact that women that you think are contenders, candidates that you thought you had a really good date with and connection, and maybe you guys hooked up, and then they just ghost you or they stop texting. Guys have a really big fucking issue with this. Women have an issue with it too, but they're like, they take it personal. Like, what did I miss? Like, I've talked about this on many live streams. And it's like, just let it go. You didn't know them that well. Oh, all these women get so much attention on dating apps. So what? So what? Why take it personal? So do you think I did something wrong? No, hell no. Just let it go. You met her on a dating app. It's fine. Well, she told me there's someone else she likes, and let it go. Move on. You think it's personal. And then they go on YouTube and they're like, oh, I could have said this line. I could have sent this text that would have went different. Get off that shit. They don't call you again, or they leave you on red, which is a big one. After you guys had a hot tub night and you guys were kissing. This is a story someone's like, we were in the hot tub, we were making out. She told me I was special. And then like 2 weeks later, she's like, I'm kind of talking to someone else. I'm sorry. What did I do? Nothing wrong, dude. You just don't know her that well. It's all a discovery mission. And when we have the bad dates, Ben, come on and tell me about the train wrecks. Those are the best stories, man. Just have a situation where you can get out of it, right? Where you don't have to sit there. A lot of my interactions with girls from dating apps felt superficial. They seem to lean towards hookup culture than anything serious. I think that has to do with age and where you're at too. Like it depends on the city, Tommy. You know, I could, and I don't know this, but I lived in my 20s in San Diego. San Diego's, there's 4 major universities. There's a lot of people living in their 20s there, single and ready to mingle. The demographics, right? Like the age groups and different things like that. So depending on where you're at, there'll definitely be that hookup culture. Saying that, you just got to sift through that. And it's kind of funny because there's women like that too. Like there's women that they don't want a serious relationship. They've been hurt before and they're just looking for guys that are good looking and to hook up. I mean, a client of mine a while back, she was a conservative woman, whatever that means, on the outside, on the surface, right? And she was telling me, she's like, oh, I can get laid anytime I want. I can get laid anytime I want. She was like in her early 40s. She's like, that's not a problem. And I know what kind of guys those are. So I think sometimes women will typecast the guys that are good looking on the dating apps too. So Tommy, what do you think are what's the alternative? So the other thing too, like if you don't like dating apps, you know, journal out or take some time. Like, what's the alternative? Where are you going to meet women? Like, it's harder now because so many people work on the internet. And I always say, probably the best places are gyms, workout group class, anything where you can do something in a group. Because that's why everyone in high school and college has a boyfriend or girlfriend, usually, or someone they're talking to. Why? Think about that for a minute. Because you're interacting with people your age, your demographic, all the time. A wide variety, by the way, if you go to a big enough school. So you're going to meet someone, usually, in those cases. Or a job that you've met someone. It has to do with that. So how are you going to put yourself in environments to meet singles that you want to meet? And that could be based on religion. That could be on, you know, I don't know. Like there was a guy that I had of a client a while back, kind of an interesting character. And he was into the, is it called con festivals where they dress up as Star Wars characters and shit? And he was way into that. And that's how he connected with his girlfriend. And he was kind of a nerdy guy. And I mean that in a good way. He was cool. But con was one of his major things. And he would go to these festivals and meet up and different things like that. So social settings are best, mutual friends, similar interests. I think what you get with that too, Tommy, is at least in social settings and mutual friends, similar interests, you can get a common ground immediately and talk and get to know that person, because a dating app immediately goes to like, well, we're both like, for example, you meet someone, your friend has a barbecue, right? And invites you over, and his girl's got some friends coming and you're going there. You don't show, like, the difference is with a dating app, it's like, hey, I'm single, you're single, I'm looking for this, I'm looking for a relationship. Like, there's no questioning that. When you show up at a barbecue, it's like, what's up, Deputy 547? How you doing, bud? Congratulations on being a dad, man. When you go to a barbecue or something like that, you both don't know if you're even single yet. The one thing that in-person does, though, is it takes away the surprise if you're really attracted to someone, because pictures are misleading on dating apps sometimes, right? So, yeah, man, I saw on Instagram that you were holding a baby, and I was like, man, it's been a while that me and you haven't talked, because I mean, that takes 9 months. I didn't even know that was coming. So I'm happy for you, man. What a blessing. Good for you. Was it a boy or girl? And what's the name, if I may ask, or if it's not something you want to share? You'd be a great dad, by the way, bud. Really good person. guys want to check out Deputy 5547 on his Instagram and stuff, man. You talk about someone went knowing you from 3 or 4 years ago. You even came on a live stream before. Man, we were just talking about how it's a boy. Okay, currently lives 8 hours away, so I drive up every weekend. Briar Cole. Wow, I haven't heard that name before. Briar. Cool, man. Nice. I like it. BC. Very nice, man. Currently lives 8 hours away. That's tough. All right. Exhausting. I've heard that from friends. Having a kid is exhausting. Yeah, a lot of energy. I remember when I used to, I taught for about a year and a half, multiple levels of elementary school. This was years ago. This maybe 10 years ago. I worked for a charity here in Thailand. And so I taught kindergarten and first grade. And I like kids. I get on with kids well. Whenever I have friends with kids, I always get on with them well. But kindergarten or first grade, those kids exhaust you. Those kids, like the energy they have, and then you got to keep your eye on them. It's amazing. It's amazing. Like you'd be done with that day and you'd be like, oh my goodness. One of the other things that was funny about teaching young kids like that is seeing the nature of little humans. So like, I remember because I'm the type of teacher, like you guys are going to have free time to play and shit. Like we're not going to be serious all the time and all that other stuff. But I would, the balls that you would see at like Chuck E. Cheese, those little plastic balls. This is how random my live stream gets sometimes. Like playing with kids love to play with those. So I had a big basket of those, right? And I would hold this yardstick ruler and I'd have the kids pitch to me and I'd hit the ball as hard as I could, right? And they would just get a kick out of it that I just didn't care, right? And they'd be in class. And then I would say, just free time, do whatever you guys want. And they'd throw the balls at each other, which is fine, right? Like it's not going to hurt anyone, right? The little plastic balls, like I said, like Chuck E. Cheese has and stuff. So I'd be the teacher, like, fuck it, like go crazy for a few minutes. And you know what always would happen? This is human nature. You guys would get a kick out of this. One of the weaker, like, kids that's kind of quiet and everything, somehow, some way, like 7 of the kids would just be lining up to drill the kid with the ball. I mean, they're not going to hurt him because it's a little plastic ball. And then they would somehow get on top of that kid and just, I don't even want to say bully, just take advantage of their weakness and hit him with and I'd be like, what are you guys doing? Like, get off of him or get off of her. And they'd be like laughing, and the kid on the ground would be like, it's okay, it's okay. It's like human nature. If you guys ever seen Lord of the Rings or had to read that in high school, but the movie, it's like when they team up on Piggy, like it's just human nature. It's so bad. And it would always end that way after free time. Like they would just be picking on one of the kids. It's like, all right, stop. Tommy, you guys, with dating apps, there's no underlying thing that keeps you connected. It's easier to walk away if that makes sense. Absolutely. There's value in walking away if that's what you want too. There's value in walking away when you want to, right? Because there's times in your life when you do want to be that way. Trying to show up as best I can. How's things with you? I'm good, bud. I'm good, man. I haven't been doing a lot of live streams recently. Just kind of reassessing things. Been busier with coaching than ever before. Have a lot of repeat clients that have come back to me to do some more things. So just being dedicated to keep doing this as I've been doing it. But it's been good. It's good to reconnect because like Tommy, even though I haven't talked to you for years, I know you, bud. And I remember things. I remember all my interactions with different clients. So I feel blessed for the job I got. I read Lord of the Flies. I don't believe you read it. It's funny, those books, that were required reading. But yeah, one thing that you'll learn about kids, man, that's an interesting thing. And you could probably, years, right, Tommy? I remember too, like I remember when we did a session, you're having a couple beers. I think you were in Texas at the time too. But it's a privilege to do my job because the kind of connections that I get with clients is the kind of connections that people take 2 or 3 years as friends. It was Texas. I remember the place too, man. I remember that. Cracked a couple beers. You're like, yeah. I'm like, no problem. Now I'm at a point now too, like 5-6 years into this. I keep saying 5 years, it might be 6 years. You know what I get a lot is people go, exactly. That's exact. And I'm like, I've been doing this for a while. Like I'll call something. You probably get this clutch sometimes, and it's like, this is what I do. You know, it's what I've been doing for a long time. Doesn't mean I'm gonna fix everything for you, but I understand what's going on in a breakup or what's coming next or some of these patterns. He said, I was heartbroken back then, look back at that and laugh now. And probably like for you, it was probably, you just needed, sometimes someone just needs to talk about it for like 2 hours, hour and a half, uninterrupted, you know, like have a talk about it. I used to get accused that I was a psychic, not just know human nature. Well, the thing about it is, if you're a really good listener, like you are, Clutch, you pick up things subliminally that most people aren't picking up. That's why I like to use the story as a base. And then you just, you know, you dedicate your time to something and you put in your work and your time in it. It's like, I haven't documented how many people I talk to and all their different situations, but each time you're gaining some knowledge, some ideas, some things about human nature. And I would add, allow yourself to be surprised. You know, the worst thing you can do is come into a situation where someone comes to you and they're talking about their situation and you're a fucking know-it-all. Oh yeah, like that you beat them to the punch. Oh yeah, that's what it is. It's like, let them fucking tell their story. I want to be heard when I have stuff. Like what happened counts, you know? What happened with you counts, and how you're perceiving it and all those other things. Let's get that out. It's like what was someone asking me earlier today? How to sometimes getting through something is accepting the fact that you're angry. I've had a few clients like, go ahead and get angry. It's fine. Say all the shit you want to say to me about what you're upset about or all the embarrassing things. It's like, look at the earliest walks of some kind of therapy in I don't know if this is only Catholic church, because I grew up Catholic. Confession. What's confession? Uninterrupted. This is what I did. You know, some people, you got to talk to someone about it. And then when you look back on it, it's not as severe. Isn't it funny, Tommy, when you look back on that stuff and you could fucking laugh? Someone's asked me that before. It's like, oh, you do breakups, so you're still broken up over yours? Hell no, I'm not broken up over mine. I'm thankful for what happened, but I understand where people are coming from. But it's a nice feeling when you can look back and go, damn, I was just like, and when you do this kind of work, you realize when you're younger, teen years and your 20s, and hopefully this kind of dissipates when you get to your 30s, things you think are so fucking heavy. It's so heavy what you're like, it's so hard to break. It's like I had this client last week, really cool dude in his early 20s. Great time to talk to me when you're in your early 20s because you're trying to figure shit out. He's like, dude, I have commitment issues. I'm like, I started laughing. And he's like, what? And he's like, other people laughed about it. I'm like, you're 22, dude. I'm like, you want to hook up with other chicks. You're not ready for a girlfriend right now. Like, you don't have commitment issues. You know what I mean? Don't worry about it. It's okay. It's not that heavy. You're not ready for a serious relationship. Take some time back. It's okay. You got a girlfriend now. You're figuring things out. Don't put that title on it that's so heavy, man. That's like, because if you look at something like commitment, right? If you really have commitment issues, you have commitment issues in your whole life. It's like you got a job, you finish college, you're in the military, you're this, like you're committed to some things. You're just committed to the things you want to be committed to. Just making some things so heavy, clogging the sink is what I call it. Deputy 547, let me know what the topic is. Go ahead and tell me. I'm interested. But yeah, that's the difference. It's like, even though you have problems now, it's like when you get older, they're not as heavy. And you look at older people, right? My dad's 74 now. He doesn't give a fuck. If I had my dad on here, it's just hilarious. He doesn't care what people think. He doesn't, oh yeah, all right, okay, all right. Oh, guy jumped off a bridge, huh? Must have been a tough life. Okay. Doesn't even, someone thinks it's just, nothing's heavy to him. 74 years old. I was just telling my mom recently, I was like, he's 74, man. Nothing to lose. The hardest reality I had to come to in my 20s is that sometimes people are just bad. You feel bad because you didn't see until it was too late. Learning experience. I'll tell you the biggest thing I learned in this kind of work, okay? And if I could have learned it earlier, it probably would have helped. But I think the only way to learn it is by what I'm being a teacher for years and doing coaching as a job, right? It's something I enjoy and I naturally do. I talk to someone for 3 hours, it feels like 10 minutes. And that's not an exaggeration. I think Clutch is the same way. I like to talk. I like to have a good conversation. Anyways, here it is. And Deputy 547, I'll get you a thing in a moment, okay? Empathy and compassion, right? Empathy and compassion, which is thrown around all the time. And we're all connected, right? If you go into any of the woo-woo or the spiritual stuff, and I've become more spiritual the last 2 years a lot, okay? And I don't impose that on people. It's just happened. It's happened in the work I do. It's happened doing more hypnosis, more connecting with people, okay? Empathy at its highest level is only attained when someone can actually feel where someone's coming from. Now, that's really difficult if you've never been there. So even if you find out someone's bipolar, someone has depression, that's, Todd's got depression. Okay, so why does he have depression or this? If you've never had depression before, it's going to be hard for you to be empathetic or compassionate. It's like people you've worked with before, right? And they're slugs. And you're working your ass off. How many times have you had that in your life? Whatever job you've been at, there's always someone there that's working harder at not working or looking for some kind of way out of shit. And you're like, can we just get it done? And you always know that about, but what you don't know is, how did that fucking person get there? How did they become that slouch? How did they become the person that values competitive laziness at work? How did they get to that point? You'll never know. I do, because when I do coaching sessions and I talk to people, right? And you can see where someone was 7 years old, then when they were 10 years old, and then you get into something deeper, you can connect the dots and go, okay, now I know why you are the way you are, and I kind of understand it. And a lot of times for people to make sense of things, they have to relate. Or if they, a good story, like a story in my own life, and I'm thinking about one now, it's going to make me a little emotional because but it's heavy. But there was a client of mine in his 20s. So I do coaching now sometimes where, and I think your age counts. So I keep saying the 20s thing. He's like 23. He's like, dude, I want to do coaching with you once a week, because I feel like you're like a life coach and we've worked on a lot of different stuff, and I want to do more stuff with hypnosis to overcome. He had some insecurities and some different things. He broke down on all kinds of stuff. So we worked together for a full year once a week. And It's been great. What's really good about this work, his progress is my progress. Like my progress is his progress, like how we work together. But one of the things that stood out, and this is going to be a deep thing. He was telling me a story. He's like I said, 23, lives in the dorms. He goes to college, and he was joking around. And if you know me, when you're in a coaching session with me, I'm not that. You can talk about anything freely. Sometimes we laugh. It's not all serious. And he was saying, as a joke, how he slut shames these girls sometimes. I said, "What do you mean, like slut shame?" He's like, "Well, he goes, I don't understand these girls that have these high body counts." I said, "All right, well, I mean, there's girls out there, sure." So he's going on about it, and he's like, "So this one girl that's my friend, I was just slut shaming her, making fun of her about she's been with all these guys and all this stuff." And I said, "Stop doing that." And he kind of was surprised because usually I don't give direct advice. I don't say like, you got to stop doing that. I'll give you options. I'll kind of go through it. And he's like, "Why?" And I said, "You don't know how she got there. So you just think that she's just being a hoe when she's just, not a good person. And that's so nasty," or whatever you're coming up with, and you're making fun of her in front of her friends, and you're cool with her and you think that's funny. By the way, when I was younger, I don't make fun of girls for that, but I've made fun of people, shit I'm not proud of when I was younger and just don't care about feelings. So I was really good with words. But I told him, I said, "Stop, don't do that anymore." And he's like, "Yeah, some of my friends told me after I left, she was crying about it." And I go, and the ironic thing is when he was a kid, he was made fun of for being fat all the time. And now he's in great shape. I'm like, you're doing exactly what you did, what kids did to you when you were fat, when you were 12 years old at the pool. And you think it's fucking funny? He goes, "I just think it's gross that girls would have a high body count." I said, "Well, look at it this way. I had a relative that's close to me, that's a female. But when she was when she was 15, 16, she got drunk with a group of guys, like some people do. And she woke up and there's multiple guys hooking up with her while she's incoherent drunk. She went on to be with a lot of guys because she never reported that. Her friends said that she was just drunk. So she went on with her life thinking that she would get with tougher guys that would maybe protect her, but also that's just who she is. She's a hoe. She's like that. And that relative was really close to me. And I told him the story. And he's like, "I get it. I won't do it again. I won't do that again." And he got what I meant. You don't know that when you're 22. You just think you're being funny. Maybe you heard a couple of, hip hop songs and like disrespecting women and shit. But if you knew that story, you wouldn't be slut shaming her in the name of what? That you're better than her? You don't know how she got there. You don't need to be nice to her, go out of your way, but to go out of your way to put her down, that's a bad place to come from, man. And he's like, "No, I get it now." He's like, "You don't have to tell me that one again." Sometimes someone can just get a story like that, but they just never have had it happen close to them. And like a lot of times people that are doing bad things, it's not their fucking fault. They've had one situation that led to another situation, and you didn't live their life, and now you're judging them. We all judge. But when you can get a story or a situation like that, and you look back at that story I just told you, and it's like that girl that got drunk with her friends, someone could be like, "Oh, she shouldn't put herself in that situation." She's 15, 16 years old. Is she expecting to wake up and there's multiple dudes around and she was wrecked? I'm not saying who's wrong, who's right. Blame the parents. Blame the dudes that were there. Okay? That's a bad situation that led to that girl feeling like shit for a long time. A long time. Right? Now that I've told him that story, now it's like, don't put gas on the fire for that, dude. You're just being ignorant. And Petty Betty, I did tell him to apologize to her, and he did. Like, I don't usually give direct advice, but I was like, that one, no. So those kinds of things, when you start realizing that, another client a while back, she's from New York. She's tough, man. Tough chick. She was like, when I was 17, my first boyfriend beat the shit out of me in Subway. I'll never forgot that. I was shocked. She's like, I never told my brothers. I never told my family. She was hysterical crying. So she has trouble sometimes trusting people. No one ever knows that, though. A lot of the things that you think you know about people, it's a surface. And there's layers and layers and layers. And until you know that, or you've been through it, like Tommy Willis is like, I couldn't relate to a breakup. I was with you 1,000%, Tommy. I would never thought I would be helping people out with their breakups when I was in my 20s. I'll never forget one of my best friends. I've told this story many times. Crying, hysterical on the phone. This dude was linebacker at our high school. He was like 220. He was an animal. Right? He's crying, hysterical. Bro, can I talk to you, please? And I'm like, what the fuck? You all right, dude? I go over his house. I'm like, that bitch. I was like 20. I don't know, 23 or something like that, 22. All I could think about is like, you're fine, dude. You'll meet some. I couldn't relate at all. I wasn't hysterical 5 years later because I don't really cry that way. And I don't mean that as an honorable thing, just how I am. But I was like, oh, this is that feeling where you're like, words can't just get you out of it. Words can't get you out of it. And so that's your classic case. Or you can hear a story from someone else that hits you right. But empathy and compassion, man, you can't just be empathetic. You got to go through some things in your life. Those are your biggest lessons. And then you're like, oh shit, Tommy Willis probably had a few situations where some dudes, like your other buddies are like, this dude's acting like a bitch. You're like, dude, it's all right, bro. You want to get a beer? You can vent about it because you've been through it. Promiscuous people sometimes are reliving a traumatic to try to take control over the experience. Doesn't work, but the mind works in odd ways. I mean, there's a variety of things that can come from that. But people that are doing bad behavior, sometimes it's validated to them. And you never know how someone got to where they got. You know, the person that's a jerk at work, you don't know what's going on at home. And it's not your job to find that out. But the more you learn about, you know, people that you would never know have these problems like I do when I talk to people behind the scenes, makes you a lot more empathetic and compassionate and open-minded to, you know, a lot of the things that happen to you, you just got to be okay with them. You don't have to like them. But that thing that I just told you about, that incident, if I could go back to that relative, is just this happens to, it's not something that is right. But we got to get you to a point where you're okay with it. You don't feel shame. Forgive them, Father. They know not what they do. Yes, sir. Coaching gets really dark sometimes. Some of the things I've heard, I literally had to call my therapist afterwards. It takes a lot out of you, but very rewarding at the same time. Yeah. I haven't had to do that. But I've just had moments where, like I said, it's a privilege to be at this point in my life. And I mean, one of the best things you can do in those situations too, Clutch, is receive what someone's told you that they've regarded as shame or guilt. And you could be like, it's all right, man. It's like, isn't that a relief when you can talk to someone about something that you thought was so embarrassing or so shameful, and the person reacts like, yeah, that happened to me, or it's okay. Or they're just quietly receive the information and don't react. Let me get back to Deputy 547's question. Got an ex that I think is using a fake account to check my stuff out, and I have no clue why. So, all right. Sorry, we just segued to from some heavy stuff to what's going on. All right, Deputy 547. How do you know? I think means I don't know. So what are you going on? How would you know that they're using a fake account, and what would be the reason? Is this the ex that you came to me for, the one that the infamous, the one that oh bro, I remember them all. I'm pretty good. My memory's pretty good. So I remember. I won't divulge that you're on the show right now, and you're a certified influencer, so maybe you don't want me to share too much. But I remember her. Like, everything's going through my mind right now. Is it the same ex as that one that you think she's using a burner account, is what I would call it, to check stuff out and have no clue why? Well, I mean, anytime you have an ex fishing around, I think the circumstances for you that you've gained a lot of popularity and influence with Instagram, and I mean, this is like your career now, right? And you've changed so much in a good way. I think you've always been that kind of person. It's always been at your core. But, going from a police officer, which, thank you for your service, and you've changed a lot over the last few years. So it's probably surprising to an ex that they're curious. But I mean, anytime an ex comes fishing around, there's probably some sort of interest one way or the other. But in your particular case, it might be a large dose of curiosity. But I don't know, like, are they leaving cryptic messages? That would be a different thing. So are they just looking, or do you see them make a message that's telling you, oh, I know who wrote this? Because I mean, you got like 100,000 followers or whatever on your Instagram. So I mean, what's the fastest way to get over humiliation and betrayal without closure? Acceptance. Simplistically put, acceptance. Accepting whatever you're humiliated or betrayed upon, that happened, it's true, and it's over. When I do the EFT, the tapping technique, that helps. I could do that with you right now if you want to try it. Great question, Truth of Love just had. Like, what's your definition of closure? I think a lot of people, I just need that for closure. Usually, in my own life, and I think some other people would probably attest to this, closure doesn't come with you doing something planned. Okay. For example, like, let's say you sold your childhood home. I don't know why this is a random, like, you grew up in this home and you're going to sell it and you're going to get rid of the house. And there was a lot of memories there, but you got to split it up with your siblings or whatever. You think there would be closure in selling the house, handing over the keys, and receiving the money. Probably, because those are date lines. They're not as, and maybe you drive by the house a week later and you have some feelings. Closure to me in a relationship, there's no contract like selling a house where you're like, all right, I'm going to move into a new house and a new place, and you have a replacement, and it's an inanimate object. In a relationship, you look for closure, but closure only comes subliminally when all of a sudden, for example, 13 years later, 5 years later, you're like, I don't even think about that person or anything. Like, you didn't have a date like a contract would on selling a house, you just all of a sudden it just kind of slowly dissipates. Now, some people can symbolically create some kind of closure event. Sure. I think most people, when it's relationships, it's a slow burn. Humiliation and betrayal are different. There's a couple different things to that. You need to find a way to deal with it. So, for example, humiliation and betrayal, if you can't accept it, it's just ludicrous. It's just fucking crazy. I've had a friend recently that came to me to talk to me, and we're doing he couldn't accept what's going on with his partner right now. It's like, all right, well, let me, I don't want to accept it. It's like, all right, that's your first step, right? Accept the fact that this happened is number one, right? Accept you're in this position. The next part is making sense of it, that you can live with it. Making sense of it, that finding the silver lining per se. So when you do EFT, it's like, for example, even though my girlfriend left me and I don't know why, I'm okay. I accept it, and I know I did my best, and I always told her the truth. Those are things that can even out the idea that it was somehow your fault. So you need to come to a place, and I can help you with that, Paul D. I don't know if we've done work before. I don't know if this is a Paul that I've worked with before, but specifically that I would use EFT. And then the fact that you can talk to some people about what you think is shameful, because shame I'm sorry if it was shame, humiliation, which is shameful, right? Humiliation is based on what other people think. So if you were to tell me the same thing and I could stand tall and listen to you and not make you feel humiliated, but actually just hold space, that helps. Stop talking to people that make you feel like it was a humiliated situation. That story I just told about that relative, she was humiliated by that. Getting drunk and then multiple guys with her. But if she told that to the right person, it's not humiliating at all. She drank too much. She put herself in a bad position. Those guys were jerks, right? You don't need to be humiliated about it. Not everyone thinks it's humiliating. The betrayal part takes time too. Don't be in a hurry. Don't be trying to push the river. The river's going to move on its own. It starts with acceptance. I could help you with that. If you want to book a live coaching session, we'll get deeper in it. Carrying humiliation and betrayal really fuck you up, man. You can simmer that down. Subconscious core wounds that got to be healed. The brain has a hard time determining what has happened and what is happening. You remember the ex? I do. Well, when we broke up, there was a fake account, and I asked who they were. Never answered. That was spring 2020. They started stuff on my page. I looked and I noticed all the accounts they were following, and I'm like, yeah, okay, that's her. I looked and I was unblocked for the first time. Sent her a friend request. The account messaged me finally. Long story short, they started with, what was so damn special about that someone? And then basically from the message, I could discern even further it was her. The account deleted itself. She accepted my friend request. We eventually met up. I brought us up. She turned it down. Talked to her there for about a year. Last July, she randomly blocked me again. Well, this sounds like the pattern that she was running before. Was doing a live in October, and someone mentioned her by name, which I've never done. On October 13th, she added me back on Snap. Recently, another fake account. I thought I might be her. After the first popped up. Last time they posted again, October 13th. I look, unblocked again, so I believe it's her. Could it be the crazy sister? How good is my fucking memory? The hairdresser sister? Tell me do I get... Because Because I remember you telling me she had a crazy sister that was in your business sometimes. I think that had a hair salon and lived with the parents. I mean, with your, and all right. I just want to know why she doesn't check my stories or snap, doesn't reach out, blocked me for no reason, and then added me and then unblocked me on Snap recently. I mean, there's a lot of twists and turns to this kind of stuff. Do you know it's her? And why do you want to know why? Like what do you want? This is a good question for you, Deputy Five. Like, what do you want to be true? Like this, you might have to be a little vulnerable. Do you want it to be that she wants to get back with you so you can deny her, like she's done to you a few times? People want you to feel what they feel. What do you want her to feel? I mean, and why are you investigating this with your big following? I don't mean this as a judgment. We're just speaking freely, right? So I'd say, number one, you're not absolutely sure, but you're pretty sure. What would you want the reason to be? And if you had to guess, you know her better than I do, what do you think the reason is? She just wants your attention. She wants to get back with you. She wants to play games. Betty, my thoughts are it's someone that's afraid to put themselves out there. So from an immature standpoint, is using this so they aren't making themselves vulnerable, avoiding the ego. All right, Paul, I look forward to it. My first thoughts anyways. Your quality of life is directly related to the meaning that you give things. Paul, wasn't that Tony Robbins that said that? Paul D, book a session. You won't regret it. I did get it about the sister. From 3 years ago, I could say some more things about what you talked about, but I didn't know if you wanted me to share it. But I remember you had a classic case that the family wasn't good. She wanted to be a cop too. Remember, she had a Mustang or something like that. The fakes pop up and I'm unblocked. Haha. The accounts they follow are too personal to her and I'm curious because that's who I am as a person. I wouldn't be surprised. I don't know why. I think maybe the sister might be involved because she's the immature one that might be doing that, like playing that game with you, and she would know like things between you and your ex. Because the way you described your ex, why would she play this game? She was going to be a cop too, right? Like, I don't know. Speculation won't resolve anything. You got to be at peace with yourself, whether or not it's her. Regret and curiosity. Okay, so this is you being honest. I did when we first met back up, and she denied it. I was a cop. Baby boy losing it. What does baby boy losing it mean? I'm not sure. Regret. So when you say that regret and curiosity, that's why you want to know if it's her or not, right? What is she saying? This would be what I'm. And actually, dude, if you want to come on right now and call in, you can. It's very easy on StreamYard. It could be her sister, though. You know I'm right too. When she's making comments, are they about a relationship or are they about like just petty shit? Is she trying to trigger you? Like, is she trying to needle you on something that you'd be needled on? That would be my question, which would be different than trying to set a trap for you. Oh, it's her regret. thing is with you, when you broke up with her, you were really trying to get back with her. So sometimes when that falls off a cliff, someone wants that attention back. And she kind of, if I remember correctly too, she would receive you when you'd come back, and then she'd reject you. Like she would let you come back, and then she would reject you hard. But this, because I take care, Clutch. Thanks for coming on, man. Congratulations. I'm happy for you, bud. Get started on some little kitties. Because I haven't talked to you in a while, Deputy 547. Is there something else that happened between now and the breakup that would make her bitter and try to mess with you? Because it sounds like she's not messing with you, so I don't really know. I have to ask more questions. My thoughts are it's someone that's afraid to put themselves out there. So I was just talking about this yesterday in the live stream, how much people don't realize they're little spectator. When you just, and you guys are in the comments now, so maybe this is the wrong time to say it, but like as a spectator, you know, when you comment on like an Instagram post or I don't know, like YouTube after the fact, what's nice about live streams is you can clarify shit, right? I think a lot of people don't like doing this because it's like, you got to be on. I got to be on. I got to be responding to everything. Not everyone's like this. This relates to when I was a teacher. It's reactive. But when you're in a space like you're an influencer, like Deputy 547, you got so many people that are, you know, throwing darts probably your way. Just 10 to 20% have to be messing with you sometimes. Even though she might be one that was special to you before, right? You should get a little bit of a smile on your face going, well, the tables have turned, haven't they? And if you made an effort to have lunch or have a talk, and because I know you had a real soft spot for her and her daughter, I believe it was, which is a big reason why you guys were so close. Maybe if your spiritual side's coming around a little bit more, just, you know, wish her well. Wish her well. But I think that people would get a kick out of, you know, you're kind of like a celebrity status for some people. You want to hear something crazy? Like Deputy 547, I live in Thailand, right? And how Instagram works, where they show someone that you're following and then someone else you know that's following that person. There's someone that lives in my area in Thailand that follows you, that works at a restaurant here. I was like, damn, that's a pretty long reach. So that person that's playing those games with you, like you said, it could be curiosity. It could be the fact that, you know, could I get this person's attention that's big now? But I wouldn't doubt if the sister's involved in playing that game, playing with you. You know. And you could just send her an email and a copy of the text and be like, is this you? Did you want to talk about something? Otherwise, it's just another fan, you know, like another person that follows you. Paul D, I kind of skipped over it when you wrote closure means no pain and rumination. Depends on the person, I suppose. But one thing you don't account for with closure and no pain and rumination is what one thing I'd add. It depends on the situation. You know, if you book a session, we'll definitely talk about it and we'll get deeper. Is that areas, places will trigger that, right? So I've talked about this before. Like years back, I went back to California for my grandfather's funeral. My grandfather was, you know, in his 80s. It wasn't, you know, when someone's in their 80s and stuff like that, you're at peace with everything. It's okay. And I was going for a jog in the Bay Area near the San Mateo Bridge, if anyone knows where that is. And this was an area that I had jogged for years. I mean, hadn't jogged there in years, but before I moved, it was where I was jogging during some of these breakup blues. And it was, I don't know, 8 or 9 years later, and I'm jogging and I start thinking about that breakup. So sometimes the mind plays some tricks on you. I know that. So the pain and the rumination can be sparked by an event that reminds you of that pain. So even if you get closure, you're still going to have to deal with it again. It's just going to be at a lower level. I'd also add, sometimes the goal, Paul, is not to eliminate or erase it or get amnesia, because that's really hard to do. It's just to get to a baseline place where you're okay with it. It's what happened. You're neutral rather than happy. How can I get happy again? How about just being neutral and content? I can get you there with the tapping, and you can redo it. I'm talking about Deputy 547 because, I mean, he's got a following, man. I don't know what he's at now. He's got 100,000 or something. This is what he does. This is what he does, man. And he's a coach. He's famous, man. He's got people, okay, this is what he showed. Yeah, it's called Deputy 547. That's what. It's not YouTube. It's Instagram. I don't think he has it. I don't know if he has a YouTube or not. He's been on the live stream before, maybe before you came on, years back. And it was over this prior ex, and he knows I have a good memory, so I remember what happened. That's why he's laughing when I said the sister. So crazy about families play a big role. When people live with their families still and they're adults and their families are a little faulty, look out, because you're next. Yes, if you don't have to get Instagram for work or anything, probably just stay off it, Betty. Just stay off it. All right, folks, it's been 2 hours, 22 minutes, and 44 seconds. You know what that means. Closing thoughts. Anyone have any comments or questions before I go? I got a few minutes. This has been good. I'm glad Deputy 547, Petty Betty, The Truth of Love with the Great Clutch, Paul D, PD. Ben was on for a minute there. Roller Girl, how you doing? Tommy Willis. We had a mixed bag today. This is why I got to make an effort, get on my live streams again. These are all, maybe half these people are people I've done sessions with. And the fact that they're doing really well right now is nice, man. I think you told me that before. One thing I'd say too about the pain and rumination is there's small things to do that help. But probably one of the biggest things to do for breakups, not everyone has the ability to do it. And some people are against it, is moving. So whether that's moving from your apartment to another apartment in in another part of town, or that's moving to another state or another country. The reason why that, and I wouldn't call it closure, the reason why that helps you move on is, especially if it's a brand new place that you don't know, you as a human being have to learn. You have to put that first. You move into a new country, a new state, a new job. You can be ruminating over the breakup and whatnot, but you have to learn where to get gas, where to get food, what's next. You have to put that first, usually when you move somewhere new. Like, where am I going to go to the supermarket? What am I going to do? And as a caveat to that, that new area doesn't trigger anything. So you never are driving by the restaurant you guys used to eat at. You're never thinking, oh, I'm going to run into them at the gym or their friends. And so it eliminates a lot of that light anxiety that you have going all the time. Now, people will be like, I can't move, I have a job or something like that. I understand. I'm just saying that one helps. Also, move somewhere that you want to move. Okay, so like I had someone years ago, she was in Australia and she loved their house, but the ironic thing, she was like 28, 20, she owned the house. So they were boyfriend, girlfriend, she owned the house. So, but she was still going to give him some money because he made some payments on it or something like that. And she was pissed because she liked this house so much. And I said, look, you're going to sell it like the way the paperwork and something was in his name. I'm like, so just pick out the coolest place that you want to live, not the biggest house or anything like that. And she picked out like a downtown area, I think in Melbourne. She's like, the apartment's so cute. It's close to downtown, bars and restaurants. That's what you want to do. You want to move somewhere new that's an exciting area to be, or a place that you're excited to live in. Could be the country. You know, like if you're in a country area or something like that. I think it's harder for people to be alone when they're post-breakup. But that's one thing that people can do that is the best. Like flipping that on its backside and saying the worst case scenario, and maybe you're in this, is if you live together, you shared an apartment, they moved out of the apartment or house, and now there's a void in the house, almost like a ghost. You guys lived together for 3, 4, 5 years. That's hard. It's hard. So then if you move to a new place, that void won't be as strong. So one of the things people can do, and a lot of them say they can't. I just gave 2 reasons that if you didn't move to a whole new place, you could just move to a new town. And I've had clients, I swear to God, this is true. I've told them that, and they've been candidates that they can do it because they're self-sufficient. They make decent to good money so they can move, and they don't do it. They stay in the apartment, they roost, they ruminate, they don't know why. And then when they move, they actually will email me or call me, and they're like, you were so right. I feel so different living in this new area or this new house. It helps. Alaska's a bit extreme. Like I said, it works really good when you move somewhere you want to move to. That's when it really works, right? If you're moving somewhere you're miserable, like I have a few clients that are in the military, and more than a few, and they always got orders like to, and I'm not talking about just the military in America. They get stationed in different places. I'm talking about career military. They get stationed in places. So they can't spend too much time ruminating. They got a mission, they got orders, like they miss that X or something, but when they get their next set of orders and they go somewhere new, it won't be long till they let that go, because a lot of times your relationships are attached to the environment, something that's not talked about a lot. Move to places where people go on vacation. Wow, you listen to me, Petty Betty. That's one of my taglines. Don't steal it. You told me that to get the fuck out of there, so I did. Yeah, Petty Betty was in a situation before where it was a faulty living situation. She was entangled in her roommate's drama. And I was like, you need to just move. You don't even, when you get entangled in roommates drama, families, you have no choice. You get to your 20s, this is people, I've moved out a long time ago. I never looked back. They had a really bad family life. When you get entangled in roommate shit, go in the bathroom, look in the mirror, go, what the fuck am I doing? This isn't even my family. And I'm involved in their personal lives, and they're going towards a dead end. If it's your boyfriend or girlfriend, it's your husband or wife, that's different because you're connected in a different way. It's harder to release that person. And when you got out of it, you're like, yeah, you were right, huh? Sometimes you're in the middle of it and there's so much drama, you don't have time to catch your breath and be like, what am I in the middle of this? You're just putting out fires. That's why it's good to have a good coach like myself, right? To just push you through. Because right when you did that, you're like, yeah, I do have to move, huh? I was like, you're talking to me in your car when you ever, I don't want to go inside right now because I don't, like, there's stuff going on. It's like, that's your place. That's your room. Move. Some people haven't lived with roommates before their whole life. They went from their family's life to like living with parents. You live with roommates, your roommates' problems become your problems. That could be a good thing or a bad thing, but most of the time it's a bad thing. When it's really bad, get the hell out of there. And then when you get like, I've had cases where I had really good roommates, it ups you up. It ups you up. I just made that up right now. But it ups you up. It makes you better. Being around stable people that have their life in order and you guys are sharing a place together, sharing bills. That's a nice feeling. When it's the opposite and everything's upside down for them and you're doing pretty well, guess what? You got to meet them halfway. And guess what? That takes you taking 2 steps back on your own life. And that's okay. You just don't want that to be a year, 2 years, 3 years. Someone told me that one when I was like 21. I remember she was a manager where I worked. She was cute too. And she just told me that so seriously. And I was like, and then years later, just like good advice happens, someone gives you good advice. And years later, you're like, oh yeah, now I know what Mac meant. Now I know what Petty Betty meant. I remember being like, your roommate's problems become, yeah, now I know what that means. Petty Betty's just dominating the chat right now. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. Clutch did send me through text his way of doing the PowerPoint dating app thing. I'll maybe show it in a future one. I hope you take a shower. All right, folks, it's been good. It's been grand. We had 10 on deck. This has been good, real good. Thanks for connecting today. We got deep. We got real deep. Looking forward to talking to you soon, Petty Betty. I know you just booked a session. Anyone else who wants to book a session, go to rightmac.com. If not, that's all good. Good to reconnect here with some people from the past. Otherwise, have a good one.